This sweater began its life in a field, not in a store, not in a factory, but on the back of an animal. And something like this is where it all starts. But what has to happen before wool can become something we can actually wear? Today I want to follow that journey, from the sheep all the way up to the closet. Wool is one of the few materials we wear that renews itself naturally every year. Sheep grow a fleece to protect themselves from the weather, and if it isn't removed, it can actually become uncomfortable for them. So once a year they are shorn. But not all sheep or all wool are the same. There are over 1,000 different sheep breeds worldwide, and they can look completely different from each other. Some are bred primarily for meat, while others, like merino sheep, are known for developing an incredibly fine fleece. And that difference matters because the finer the fiber, the softer the yarn. This is some fleece from a German Merino sheep that I got from a friend, and today I want to try something I've actually never done before. I want to turn this fleece into a yarn that I can knit with. Let's see how it goes. Now, of course, this is usually done on a much larger industrial scale, so throughout the video we are also going to look at how the same process happens in the factories. Before wool can become yarn, it has to be cleaned. This process is called scouring. Raw fleece contains lanolin, a natural wax, along with dirt, sweat and bits of vegetation. And even at home you can see the transformation begin almost instantly. This is the lanolin and dirt being released from the fibers, and this step is actually more important than it might seem, because everything that comes next depends on how clean the fiber is. I have added a little bit of dish soap to help clean the fibers, and I'm going to let the fibers soak for at least a couple of hours before taking them out and washing them again another time with clear water. In industrial processing, this happens in large scouring systems where wool is washed in multiple baths with controlled temperatures and detergents. But the principle is exactly the same. Clean fiber is the foundation of everything that follows. Next, I'm going to lay out the fiber to dry. You can simply do this on a drying rack in the sun, or if you want to speed up the process, you could also use a salad spinner or even a spin dryer if you have one. Once the wool is clean and dry, the fibers are still lying in all different directions. To turn them into yarn, they first need to be aligned. This is done through a process called carding. At home, this can be done with hand carders, essentially brushing the fibers until they begin to run in the same direction. I have actually never done this myself before, but after I watched a couple of YouTube videos, I felt somewhat confident that I could do this. So you basically repeat this brushing process you can see me do here until the fibers are aligned like this. After carding, the fibers can be gently rolled into what are called rolags. This makes the wool easier to spin and keeps the fibers light and airy. And at this stage, the fleece already feels completely different from where it began. These finished rolags are now ready for spinning, and this is the stage where many of the qualities of the final yarn are already being shaped, whether it becomes smooth, rustic, airy or dense. In industrial settings, this happens in large machines with hundreds of fine metal teeth that do the same thing at scale. And what's fascinating is that this step doesn't just prepare the wool for spinning, like I mentioned, it also determines the texture of the final yarn. Once the fibers are aligned, they can finally become yarn. This is done through spinning, where you basically twist the fibers together to create strength. And before the industrialization, this was done entirely by hand, using a spinning wheel, which was simply part of everyday life. Today, spinning wheels still exist, like this one here, which is my own spinning wheel. And there are even small electric spinning wheels available now. In industrial production, spinning happens in large automated systems that can produce consistent yarn at incredible speed. Spinning works by drawing out the fibers while adding twist at the same time, like you can see me do here. And that twist is what gives the yarn its strength. And what I find fascinating is that this process has remained surprisingly unchanged for centuries. Whether done on a historic spinning wheel or a modern industrial machine, the principle is still exactly the same. To make the yarn more balanced and durable, multiple singles can be twisted together in the opposite direction, And this process is called plying. It strengthens the yarn and changes both the texture and behavior of the final fabric. And this is the moment where something soft and loose becomes something structured. Color can be added at many different stages of the process, before the spinning, after the spinning, or even once the final fabric is made. For this experiment, I decided to dye the wool naturally using onion skins. Natural dyeing has been practiced for centuries using plants, roots, bark, insects, and food waste to create color. As the onion skins simmer, they slowly release their pigment into the water. And even before adding the wool, the dye bath already develops this beautiful warm color. The next day, I filtered out the onion skins to leave behind only the dye liquid itself. And once the wool is added, the fibers slowly begin absorbing the dye while the pot is gently simmering. And this is one of my favorite moments in the entire process, because this is where the material begins to feel truly transformed. Natural dyeing also requires a lot of patience, because the process takes a couple of days or even weeks depending on what dye material you use. And no two dye baths ever turn out exactly the same. For me, this is one of the most beautiful moments of the entire process, because when you are working with natural dyes, you never fully know how the color is going to turn out. And there is also so much color potential all around us. You can use kitchen waste, flowers, herbs, trees, and even weeds for natural dyeing. In contrast, nowadays wool is generally dyed using synthetic acid dyes, which come in the form of powders. This method allows for very repeatable and precise colors, and as you can imagine, it is much more commonly used in large-scale productions. Both methods have their place, I think, but they create a completely different relationship to the material. By this point, the wool has already changed dramatically. A couple of days ago, it was this very raw-looking fleece. Then it became this fluffy cloud after carding. And now it is a beautiful, naturally dyed yarn that looks already very similar to what we recognize in our everyday life. And once the yarn is spun, it becomes the foundation for many different textile techniques. It can be woven, knitted, crocheted, or used in macrame. In industrial settings, machines can produce fabric in a matter of minutes. A sweater might be completed in just a couple of hours. By contrast, knitting a sweater by hand can take anywhere from 20 to over 100 hours, depending on many different factors like the complexity of the pattern and the thickness of the yarn. Same material, but a completely different relationship to time. Wool has some remarkable natural properties. It is breathable, moisture absorbing, odor resistant, and temperature regulating, and it does not have to be washed as often. And unlike synthetic fibers, wool is biodegradable. Today, a lot of garments are made using synthetic materials or blends, like blends of polyester, nylon, or acrylic, but those do not break down the same wool and they can release microplastic over time. So being aware of this, I think, makes wool feel just different. And you also become aware that it is part of a larger ecosystem. So finally, the fiber becomes a garment. And looking at the whole process that went into creating this single piece of clothing makes the clothing just feel very different, I think. It becomes the result of land, animals, skill, and time. And that is the part that changed how I see wool. Understanding where materials come from changes how we value them, and often it changes how long we keep them and how well we take care of them. And maybe that is one of the lessons that wool has to offer us. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, I think you're also going to like this one here. Until next time, take care. Bye.